All right, welcome future real estate superstars. Are you ready to absolutely crush your licensing exam? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to dive deep and master the core economic principles you absolutely have to know, not just to pass your test, but to launch your career. Let's get into it.
So first, I want you to meet the Millers, or, a family just like them. These folks, they represent your future. They are the very reason you're putting in all this hard work right now.
Here's their story. They bought a little starter home a few years back, but now, with the family getting bigger, they are literally bursting at the seams. They've saved up, they're super excited, and guess what? They've chosen you to guide them through this huge step.
And then they hit you with it. The big one. The question that really separates the hobbyists from the true professionals. So, is now a good time for us to sell? How you answer that? Well, it all comes down to understanding the economic forces we're about to break down right now.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to cover the core forces that drive the market, stock up our professional vocabulary, learn how to sidestep some really common exam traps, and then we'll wrap it all up with a final power-up. By the time we're done here, answering the Millers is going to feel like second nature.
Look, if you want to give expert advice, you have to know the why behind it all. I mean, what really makes the housing market tick? It all boils down to a handful of fundamental truths about land itself.
Okay, exam alert. Seriously, write this down. The test absolutely loves to try and trip you up on the difference between physical and economic characteristics. Just remember it this way. Physical traits are just what the land is. You can't move it, you can't really destroy it, and every single piece is unique. But economic traits, that's all about its value as an asset. We're talking location, any improvements made to it, its nature as a long-term investment, and of course, scarcity. You have got to know this distinction cold.
So, what brings all the buyers to the yard? That's demand, and it's pretty intuitive, right? It's driven by things like more people moving to an area, better jobs, higher pay, what's trendy, and of course, a huge one, how easy and cheap it is to get a mortgage. When these things go up, so does the number of buyers.
Now, on the flip side of that coin, we've got supply, which is just the number of homes available to buy. And that's affected by things like the cost of lumber and labor, how much land is even available, getting loans for builders, and this is a big one you can't forget, government controls. Things like zoning laws and regulations can totally change how many homes get built in a market.
And all of this leads to the classic tug of war in real estate. When there are tons of houses for sale, but not that many buyers, that's a buyer's market. But what about when it feels like everyone is trying to buy, and there's almost nothing on the market? Yup, that's a seller's market. And that's when sellers, like our friends the Millers, hold all the cards. Exam alert, you 100% have to be able to identify these two market conditions.
All right, next section. If you want to be a pro, you've got to sound like a pro. So let's lock in some key terms in our vocabulary vault.
Let's kick things off with a huge one, situs. Another big exam alert, people often say this is the single most important economic characteristic of real estate. So think about it like this. You have two totally identical houses, but one is right next to a top-rated school and the other is next to a loud, busy factory. That massive difference in price? That's situs. It's the economic muscle behind location, location, location. A great school district turbocharges situs, which cranks up demand for a limited supply of homes, and that creates the perfect seller's market the Millers are dreaming of.
Next up, vacancy rate. Think of this as a quick health check for a market. A really high vacancy rate means there are a lot of empty units, which usually points to a renter's or a buyer's market. On the other hand, a super low vacancy rate, that's a huge sign of high demand in a landlord's or seller's market. And here's a simple but really important one, household. See, in real estate economics, we're not just counting families. A household could be a single person, a couple of roommates, or a traditional family. It's the basic unit that creates the demand for a place to live. Okay, team, huddle up. Let's talk strategy. The exam isn't just about knowing stuff, it's about not falling for the clever traps they set for you. Let's go ahead and expose a couple of the biggest ones right now.
So you see a question just like this. Your mind starts racing. It says permanent nature. So you immediately think, oh, indestructibility. But wait, slow down. That's the trap.
Here's the absolute key. The question is asking about an investor's perspective, which is an economic idea. The trap, indestructibility, is a physical trait of the land itself. The correct answer here is C, fixity. Fixity is the economic term for the fact that real estate is a fixed, long-term investment. Those improvements you make to the land are permanent, and they take a long, long time to pay for themselves. That's fixity.
The test wants to know if you see the difference. Do not fall for it.
And here's another classic pitfall. Any questions that mention government controls. Always remember, things like zoning laws and building codes can have a massive, massive effect on both supply and value. A question might ask you how a new zoning law changes a market. You need to know that it can restrict what gets built, which shrinks the supply and usually drives prices up.
All right, take a deep breath. This is it, your final power-up. Let's lock in the 3 most important takeaways from today's session. You ready? Let's do this.
Number 1.
First up, supply and demand is king. It dictates everything. It determines whether you're in a buyer's or a seller's market. For the millers, a low supply plus a high demand means it is an absolutely fantastic time for them to sell.
Number 2. Second, physical traits are not the same as economic traits. Remember that exam trap we talked about? The land itself is durable. That's a physical trait, indestructibility. An investment in that land is long-term. That's an economic trait, fixity. Do not get those two mixed up.
And number 3,
And third, situs is where the money is at. Location, location, location isn't just some catchy phrase. It is the most powerful economic force driving a property's value, period.
So look, you have the concepts now. You've seen the traps. You are totally ready to answer the millers and every single client that comes after them with the confidence and the expertise of a real professional. So the question isn't what's on the exam anymore. The real question is, how are you going to take this knowledge and build yourself an incredible new career? Now go make it happen.